Hi everybody, thank you for coming back to our channel. As you can see, we are not joined by just one, but two lecturers today, Nanna Verhoeff and Iris van der Tuin. We will have a conversation about their roles at Utrecht University, their research interests, and the Creative Humanities Academy, which they co-founded. So thank you for joining me in this interview, Nanna and Iris. How are you both doing?
I think we're doing very well. It's a challenging time for all of us, and it's intense working on the screen all day. It's nice actually to be in the situation that we can share the screen at the moment for the interview. Yeah, I guess that's it.
And could you both tell me what your position is at Utrecht University and what research field are you in?
Yeah, I'm at the moment associate professor in the Department for Media and Culture Studies. And from September, I will be full professor, holding the chair of Screen Cultures and Society.
Yes, congratulations on that.
Yeah, thanks. So that's also an indication of my field. I think screen studies, screen culture, in the broadest sense, is a research interest of mine. I forgot to mention that in the Department of Media and Culture Studies, I'm also the program coordinator of the research master Media, Art and Performance Studies. Yeah. And you?
Yes, and me. So I have very much a double function at the university. So I'm a professor in theory of cultural inquiry. That is my main field of research. So I research the way in which scholars with an interest in culture do their research. So my background is very much in philosophy of science, but I've always translated that into an interest in philosophy of the humanities, which is kind of a little bit marginalized in the field of philosophy of science. And I narrowed that down specifically to cultural inquiry. And what I'm interested in is looking at how the study of culture is itself part of culture and influenced by what happens in culture around us. So, for example, the role of algorithms in culture also affects the way in which we study the algorithmic condition, because we're a part of it. And so my second function is that I'm director of education of the School of Liberal Arts, which is a school that is part of the Department of Philosophy and Religious Studies, which is part of the Faculty of Humanities. And this school brings together language and culture studies and liberal arts and sciences, so interdisciplinary bachelor education.
And we're both active in the research platform of Transmission in Motion. And within that platform, we are each part of different sub-themes, but collaborating also in the Creative Humanities track in that platform. And so we collaborated also in initiating a lifelong learning initiative for the Faculty of Humanities called the Creative Humanities Academy.
How did you end up working together on that? How did that all start?
Well, that's a good question, and it's a nice story, I think. Because lifelong learning is something that the university wants to stimulate and contribute to. So after you've graduated, you will always continue learning. And how do you then think about offering something for our own alumni, but also some others, mainly in the field of arts and culture when it comes to our particular project? And what we did was we basically went back to our emails that we received from professionals in the field of art and culture. And we realized that these professionals have very specific questions. So questions that center around concepts, that center around cultural theory, that center around philosophy. And also they have questions about like didactic and pedagogical methods. So when somebody who works in a museum approaches me, for example, or approaches Nanna or our colleagues in the faculty, that person doesn't necessarily want a lecture. They want to discuss a concept or a theory or a text on a very horizontal basis, and that the discussion about form is always very present when I work with lifelong learners from the arts and culture fields, and this is how we started this project. So how can we kind of streamline this thinking about didactics and thinking about content a little bit?
Yeah, so when the faculty took the initiative to also fund some projects to develop lifelong learning from the faculty, we wanted to do something else than just designing a course. So we thought it was because the questions that we receive and that our colleagues receive are so variegated and actually opening up to very different ways of working with professionals, that the model of designing one course and as a sender providing this for the field of cultural professions, we thought it'd be interesting to offer a sort of a platform or an infrastructure where very different questions could arrive and from the field, and that we develop very different ways of working together with professionals. Our aim was also to not do this from one department or one field, but to really develop something for the Faculty of Humanities in the broadest sense.
For us, it is inspiring to learn what arts and culture professionals want to read and how they want to discuss these texts, and with what kind of project in mind. So the idea of a course is that you set a syllabus and you offer it and to kind of people that want to take that particular course. But we are also very much interested in how the reading material suggested by for example, artists or curators, how that reading material can then later on be inserted in our syllabi at the university. So we are very much thinking about this as a two-way street.
So you already told me a little bit about transmission in motion. You are both coordinators of this research community. Could you maybe tell me a little bit more about this?
So earlier I said to you that philosophy of science was is very much something that focuses on the natural sciences, and that for me was a reason to actually move to philosophy of the humanities. And what we do in transmission in motion is we actually take knowledge production, also natural science, production of natural scientific knowledge and technology development. We take that as topics of research of humanists, so scholars from the Faculty of the Humanities, but also of artists. So artists usually have a very interesting perspective on new technologies or old technologies. They use them in very creative ways, and in that use, they learn a lot about these technologies. And we collaborate with such artists, but we also study them. So it's yet a different take on what I said earlier about science and humanities and knowledge production.
Yeah, and as a community, so me and Iris, Professor Frank Kessler and Professor Maaike Bleeker were sort of leading and shaping this community, but it's also an example of a meeting point of very different corners, if you will, within the humanities. So Iris is very central to it from philosophy. But also within the Department of Media and Culture Studies, we have people who specialize more in theater or other performative practices, or in cinema studies or digital media studies. So we're also bringing in the different perspectives from all these researchers in seeking this connection between philosophy and theory and artistic practice.
Yeah, And what we concretely do is we discuss our own research. We create collaborative research that we do together. And we also invite lots of guests. And when we have an invited guest, there's always students attending lectures. And so these seminars also feed into our training programs.
We also have each year a year-long seminar around a certain theme that is sort of collective meetups where we convene with students, researchers in the various departments of the humanities, and guests, and also people interested from outside. So it's also a sort of a meeting point of people that we are very much interested in facilitating as a platform.
Thank you for your time and enthusiasm on behalf of all students. I hope the upcoming school year will be a good one for you both. And I wish you all the best in these very trying times.
Thank you for the interview.